We're going to have Alan Mendenhall. I always look forward to talking with Alan. And trustee at the Philadelphia Society, executive director of the Blackstone and Burke Center for Law and Liberty, associate dean at Faulkner University Thomas Goode Jones School of Law, and managing editor at the Southern Literary, I can't even pronounce that. He does all this stuff, review. So awesome guy. And we're going to be talking about the election. Hey, Alan, how are you doing?
I'm great, Donna. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. There are some questions I have about what has happened this morning with President Trump on some of the remarks he has made and tweeted and what have you. But let's go ahead and talk about the election. So, are you surprised at the outcome?
Well, not necessarily. I think this is what I was expecting. Really, I was expecting the Republicans to lose the House and maybe gain some seats in the Senate, but I think the Republicans far surpassed my expectations. I mean, for weeks we've been hearing so much about a blue wave that you would have expected a tsunami last night, but I think Democrats probably woke up this morning with the disappointment that school children feel when they've been expecting school to close for snow,
And
they look out the window and the sun is shining bright and there's no snow to be seen. That's probably how a lot of Democrats felt. The reason why I think that even though they gained the House, they essentially lost last night is that the natural balance of power always swings back and forth in Congress. In the 2006 midterms, when George W. Bush was president, the Democrats gained control of the House and Senate. When Barack Obama was president, in both 2010 and 2014 midterm elections, Republicans enjoyed sweeping historic gains. And 1998, in fact, when Bill Clinton was president, were the midterm elections were the first time since 1934 that didn't result in net gains in congressional seats for the party whose president was not in office. So, in other words, and also George W. Bush gained eight seats in the House and 2 in the Senate in the 2002 midterm. So with W. Bush, Clinton, and FDR, you're looking at the only presidents to gain seats in a midterm since the Civil War. So given all this history, in light of all this context, the Democrats, just as a matter of course, should have done far better than last night than they did, because historic trends would suggest that, okay, the party that doesn't have the presidency almost automatically is going to gain seats. They should have gained a ton of seats, and they didn't. And in light of the history, they barely got anything. So the Republicans really ought to consider the 2018 midterms a victory. To have picked up as many seats in the Senate as they got is an incredible victory. We saw how tight the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings were and how much of a struggle it was to get Kavanaugh confirmed. Well, rather than looking at a 51-49 margin of control, now we're looking at either 55-45 or 54-46. Depending really on what happens in Montana, which I think is still up in the air. But that means that Republicans are really going to push candidates through, or nominees through, in the federal courts. You know, already since Trump was elected, we've seen 84 judges confirmed, 2 to the Supreme Court, so 2 Supreme Court justices, and 29 to circuit courts. So Donald Trump's administration has already really done a great job in populating the federal courts with great jurists. But now that we have a little bit of gridlock in the House and Senate and Congress, we're going to see, I think, Republicans make a concerted effort to push more judicial nominees through, because that is one place where, because just the Senate controls the process, that is one place where Republicans stand to make a lot of gain. And so you're going to see a lot of activity on the federal judiciary side, which, of course, as sort of the law professor type, that kind of stuff interests me.
Well, what's happening right now in Georgia?
Well, that's a good question. I keep hearing that it's too close to call, but I have a feeling that Kim has pulled this one off.
Yeah, but didn't you hear, though? I mean, I thought that 7 o'clock p.m. was the cutoff time. They were letting people in over, like, close to midnight last night. Is that fair?
Well, I don't think it is, and I think some of that is a result of Stacey Abrams' claims that, Kemp should have recused himself as Secretary of State in the race that he would preside over as the chief electoral official, in his capacity as Secretary of State. I think there are a lot of claim shenanigans in that state. It's interesting that Stacey Abrams would take that point of view when throughout the campaign she's been talking about how voter fraud really is not a big issue, and we don't need to worry about voter fraud. We need to get everyone out to register for vote. Don't worry about vote. And then she's claiming essentially voter fraud against Kemp, so it's very hypocritical on her part. But it looks to me as though Kemp has got that one in the bag, although as of right now, I do not believe she has conceded. So we will see. I think that by the end of the day, we'll find out that Kemp has won, unless Abrams and her campaign crew decide to make a big legal issue out of this and make a statement and try to push something, some kind of runoff. But I think Kemp's got over 50% of the vote. I don't think there will be a runoff there. But one big news story, and this is not particular to Georgia, this is nationally, is I think voter turnout was the highest since like 1970. So
I've never seen it like
this. Were going out and voting, and it was a big deal. I think TV ratings were up last night. A lot of people stayed up all night trying to see how things would turn out. And here we are the next day at 1 o'clock, and we still don't know the result of some of these races. So I hope people didn't try to stay awake the whole time, because they would probably be passing out by now, needing sleep.
Well, I tell you what, this is almost as good as the Alabama-Auburn football game, almost.
I tell you what, that's the one thing that politics is becoming more entertaining. And I don't know if it's because of social media, sort of the democratization of media, and more people feel involved, and more people feel that they can access the news or access their candidates. But a lot of people are turning to politics and really getting kind of everyday enjoyment out of it. So as much as we talk about how divided we are and all that, sometimes I wonder, are we really as divided as these?
It brings
us
together. All
kind of watching these the way we watch sports, and this is becoming an athletic event sort of for people, a form of entertainment, and that every now and then you get some wacko that takes things to violence or something like that. But that for most Americans, this is, although it's a battle for the future of the country, it's also entertaining. And I don't know.
Well, I think people were feeling more like their vote counted yesterday. I know Mother works the polls in Geraldine, Alabama, and she said, I don't remember seeing this many people coming in. And I went to vote. It's the First Baptist Church in Geraldine, and I'm telling you, that room was crowded.
Wow. Yeah, mine was pretty crowded too. Although when I got to my polling station, the lines at every table were just backed up. The M's to the P's, which is where my name falls, just happened to be kind of empty. So I just walked past lines of people and walked right up. Am I missing something? Did the M's not show up today? But I walked right in and voted and walked out pretty quickly. So it was fairly routine for me. I was in and out before some people even got to the front of the line for their names.
Well, that was great. Well, let me ask you a question. Did you notice the people who won bigger were the ones who accepted President Trump? I'm talking about Republicans right now. Who accepted...
Yeah, right. No, that's right. And actually, I think Trump... I missed his press conference today. I actually had a lunch appointment, so I was unable to hear it, although I could see it on the screen in the restaurant. But it does look as if the candidates who tried to run away from Trump and distance themselves from Trump ended up being the candidates that lost. I think Trump made that point in his press conference, but I think that's a fascinating point, given what I said at the beginning about how Republicans should consider this a win. I think you could also say that to the extent that this midterm election was a referendum on the Trump presidency, as Trump himself said it would be, then he won. I mean, he had a very good night. The people that sort of ran to him were reelected. The senators who are red state Democrats who voted against Kavanaugh, people like Donnelly and Heitkamp and Nelson and maybe Tester. I don't know where his race stands yet. It looks as if he may have won. But if he didn't, then all kind of red states or purple states will have been voted out of office. All the ones that voted against Kavanaugh. I mean, and the only Democrat on the list of kind of purple state, Joe Manchin, who did vote for Kavanaugh, was reelected. So it turns out that Kavanaugh confirmation hearing may have been pretty momentous. And the Democrats that were in sort of swing states that decided to vote against Kavanaugh were ousted, whereas Joe Manchin he kept his seat. And in fact, I've got a friend who is a lobbyist. He lives in West Virginia. He does much of his lobbyist work in D.C., but he was telling me in some local polls that when Manchin voted yay for Kavanaugh, his percentages jumped about 10 points. So that was a very strategic move for him. That was the right decision. That guaranteed that he would beat Patrick Morrisey, who was a conservative former Attorney General of Alabama. And it just goes to show you that these Supreme Court nominations and potential vacancies are a big deal in the minds of voters.
Well, I think a lot of voters would rather, if they're Democrat, would much rather see someone who's a little more in the middle and not so extreme left. So do you think this could be a new day for Democrats?
Well, I think in some ways, yes. I think you could say that. Of course, you have people like Ocasio-Cortez, who professes socialism, who was elected in New York, and people like Bernie Sanders, who purports to be a socialist, who was reelected handily in Vermont. But these are areas of the country that are just so far outside the mainstream of middle America that they cannot be considered representative in any way. I mean, in Indiana, which is much more what I consider to be a middle American type state, you have a former state legislator, Mike Braun, who handily defeated Joe Donnelly. In Missouri, another state that to me represents kind of a middle America, you have state Attorney General Josh Hawley beat Claire McCaskill and get her out. North Dakota, another state, sort of rural but middle America. Heidi Heitkamp, she's gone. She's out. She lost to Kevin Kramer. We're still waiting to see on Florida, but it looks like Governor Rick Scott's going to hold out in probably a more narrow victory. I do not consider Florida to be representative of the country because Florida is such a melting pot. There's such a hodgepodge of different types of people and different interests and different constituencies. But I think that all of this shows that the sort of conservative, the middle to conservative wing of American politics is where victories will be in 2020. Unless things just change dramatically. I mean, I think Ted Cruz won fairly handily, but it also, in a margin that he wouldn't have liked to have seen, say, a few years ago, looking forward to this race. So there are some demographic changes in places like Florida, in places like Texas, in places like California, and they may trend towards Democrats. Interesting to me, I know we had at least one Muslim elected this time around, and as a Democrat, but you would think that the more Muslims start turning out for politics in America, the more they will be going towards the conservative party, since the Democrats undermine everything that Islam stands for.
Right.
I think that the Democrats may try to use immigration as a way to turn out Muslims to be candidates in races. But if they do that, they will regret it, because in 10 years they'll find that most of those Muslim candidates will have turned far to the right and trying to institute types of law that undermine women's rights and things like that that the Democrats allegedly stand for.
Right.
So, I mean, there's just a lot to watch out there.
Well, I mean, in a Muslim nation, a woman can't even drive. I mean, they're just, So your point is taken really. So let's talk just one more thing about Ted Cruz. Do you think he would have won it all had President Trump not been out there? If they hadn't kissed and made up, do you think he would have won?
Well, I don't know. I certainly think that helped. I truly do. There were, if you look back at the 2016 presidential election, there were some tough feelings. I remember people at first were referring to the bromance between Trump and Cruz, because for so long during the debates, Cruz said nothing negative about Trump, and Trump really didn't say too much negative about Cruz. And then at the end, when it looked like things were getting close and that it might even come down to Trump versus Cruz, that's when Cruz went on the offensive and started attacking Trump, and Trump started referring to Lion's Head and all that.
I started digging him out.
And it got even uglier when Trump started talking about Cruz's father and all that. But they did make up, and I think for both of them, that was a wise decision politically.
I do too.
I think they both benefited from that. I think Cruz picked up some of the people that were staunch Trump supporters, and and vice versa. I think a lot of Cruz people came to terms with Trump and accepted Trump. So I think that politically that was the right move for both of them.
Well, I want to ask you another question before we go into a break, and this is what President Trump said this morning about Nancy Pelosi, that he thought she deserved it. She worked really hard to be, and he hopes that she is Speaker of the House. So that has a double meaning to me. What is your meaning? How did you take that?
Yeah, he tweeted something else, like, in all fairness, Pelosi deserves to be chosen Speaker of the House. But I think, so part of that has to do with a lot of Democrats opposing Pelosi. Pelosi was Speaker of the House at one point, and then now she'll have the opportunity to be Speaker again. But there are a lot of people that are against her. In some ways, this is I don't know. There are different ways to take this. Number one is it could be, a way of Trump trying to preemptively strike against the threat of subpoena usage by Pelosi and the Democrats. So the House may use subpoena power to try to get information from Trump about Russia or his tax returns or whatever. Interestingly enough, Eric Holder set a precedent. The Democrats in the Obama administration did a terrible job of all this. They kept setting precedents that Republicans could use later. So one is that Eric Holder could just ignore subpoenas from the House. So now Trump can just point back to the Obama administration and say, well, look, Obama and Eric Holder, they ignored this, so I'm just going to ignore it too. That's kind of like Obama's the whole I got a pen and a phone thing, not thinking that, someone like Donald Trump has a pen and a phone too and might be able to use it. But yeah, I think it may also be interpreted as a challenge to Nancy Pelosi, that kind of, hey, bring it on, let's go to war. You try to use your subpoena power, you try to come after me, you try any kind of impeachment shenanigans, and we'll go to war over it. The other thing about the Republicans gaining seats in the Senate is that it makes it way more difficult to get any kind of an impeachment thing accomplished for the Democrats. So the Senate will not back any kind of impeachment efforts. So it will be the same situation, I guess, that you had when Bill Clinton was president. If the House were to impeach, given the Democratic majority, then the Senate, which has a Republican majority, will prevent that from happening. Well, anyway, I don't think we would ever get that far, but politics is crazy these days, so who knows?
I'll tell you how I'm taking it. I'm taking it as a businessman strategy, where they say keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Well, and that's kind of what I was getting at with my first response. Yeah, and so that is certainly a part of it. Is keep your enemies close. That's exactly right. So that's definitely one way of interpreting it.
And I'll tell you another thing is I think if she is Speaker of the House, if he's a shoe-in for the next time around, he'll be president again. He'll get another 4 years. And I think he's smart enough to know that.
Yep, I think that's right. And I mean, another thing to think about is what this is getting back to the Senate again, away from the House. But looking ahead to 2020, Republicans are going to defend 22 of 34 seats up for grabs potentially, and we've got one of those is one seat to look at in particular is Doug Jones, because he's going to whether it's Bradley Byrne, Del Marsh, Glenn Murdoch. I mean, there are probably more names than that will be vying for that spot. But we're going to get a new senator, and that will be exciting. I mean, and Shelby may even retire by then. We may have two new senators. I don't know. So even locally, there's a lot to look for going into 2020.
Okay, let's go ahead and cut to a break. I'd like to talk to you about the statewide elections and the results from those when we come back. Okay, we'll be back, guys, in just a few seconds. Y'all hang in there.
He's in the Senate, but somebody like him in the House would be dangerous to Republicans, I think.
I think so, too. Absolutely. Okay, Twin City Used Cars, and then Bruce's Foodland, and we're back on. And some of those at the early part of it, I thought, oh no, and Mo Brooks, my goodness, I thought he was going to take a stomping. And so it all worked out. So
It did.
I'm glad. Again, it's just like watching a football game.
It is.
Okay, let's see. We have 14 seconds left in Bruce's Foodland. Go shop my friends at Bruce's Foodland, by the way. They're bringing some great deals. The cream cheese, the store brand cream cheese is on sale, 4 for $5. It's a good deal. If you like to make cheesecakes for the holidays, go on ahead and buy that up. That's what I did yesterday. Okay, let's see. We're about ready to go in. About 45 seconds. We're playing our lead-in song, the intro song. And by the way, that is Frankie King that you are listening to right now. She's a real good friend of mine. And she and I host another show called Living on the Edge with Donna and Frankie. And we'll be recording a new show tomorrow night. So listen to her. And she has a new song that she wrote. It's called Living on the Edge. So I'm going to beg her to let me use that song for a lead-in song. You're going to really love it. It's got a real fast tempo to it. You'll love the beat. Okay, 12 seconds. Good afternoon. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home. Thank you so much for listening to us every day, Monday through Friday, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. It's so exciting to be able to talk with you every day. I love my weekends, and Phil and I always have some great things going on. Sometimes we fish, sometimes we do whatever, and so it's always good to be home on the weekends. But I look forward to Monday so I can see you too. So this is already the wonderful Wednesday version of Afternoon Drive Home. Already Wednesday. Tomorrow will be Thursday. We look forward to having some wonderful guests with us tomorrow as well. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we'll be talking with Larry Beckham. He's going to be talking with us about the fundraiser they're having for diabetes. So we'll be talking about that. And then Mallory Allen is going to be with us tomorrow as well at 2 o'clock, Shepherd's Cove Hospice. And then we'll be talking on Friday, Financial Friday's version of Afternoon Drive Home, with Vicki Sanders, who is with Allstate Insurance. And then 2 p.m. on Friday, we'll be talking with attorney Greg Hopkins. And I always look forward to talking with him as well. Coming up today at 2:30, we'll be talking with my friend Jonathan Phillips, who is the director of the DeKalb County Technology Center. And then also at 2 o'clock, we'll be talking with Alan Keller, by the way. He'll be talking about local elections and how all of that worked out here in Jackson County. He's the Republican chairman of the Jackson County right here. I always look forward to talking with him. But right now I have Alan Mendenhall with me. And now Alan is also an author. Alan, you want to go ahead and talk about your the things that you have written, your books, and how folks can find those articles?
Oh, well, sure. Well, I have a website, which is alanmendenhall.com. That's ALLENMendenhall. And I have written a few books. One is a book of essays called Of Bees and Boys. That's probably the best-selling of my books. It's a collection of just sort of personal narrative stories about family and childhood and growing up in the South. But I also have a book out, which is an edition, called The Southern Philosopher, Collected Essays of John William Corrington. That book was published by the University of North Georgia Press. And that is a collection of essays written by a man who's not particularly well known, although he wrote around 30 books, authored or edited or co-authored, including the screenplay for Battle for the Planet of the Apes. But he was an attorney with a PhD in English who wrote films. He wrote for soap operas. He wrote books of poetry. He wrote novels. So he was a very interesting man. I have a book about the former Supreme Court Justice Alvin Wendell Holmes Jr., and a book on kind of free market literary criticism. And actually, I have another book that will be coming out either at the end of this month or the beginning of next month. It'll come out with a 2019 copyright on it, but it'll be coming out at the end of this year. And it's an anthology of interviews I've done with authors for Southern Literary Review, among other places. And that's very interesting. It's much more about the authors themselves and how they sit down to write, what they think about when they write, about their books. And that's very interesting to me as someone who was an English major and who ended up getting a PhD in English, even though he was a lawyer. I find talking to authors to be very fun, and so it's nice to see an anthology of those conversations coming out.
And that's why we love having you and interviewing you for the show, and it's your knowledge.
Oh, well, thank you.
So
Thank you, Donna.
let's talk a little bit about Alabama politics. Were you surprised at anything that happened last night?
You know, I woke up this morning looking for surprises, and if there's a surprise out there, I didn't find it. I mean, I think Kay Ivey winning was no surprise. I think Will Ainsworth as Lieutenant Governor was no surprise. Steve Marshall as Attorney General was no surprise. That was one I'm particularly excited about. I know he's made a new hire for Solicitor General. Actually, the person will come in as Deputy Solicitor and will serve as Solicitor if Andrew Brasher, who is our current Solicitor, is confirmed to the Middle District of Alabama, which I also suspect will happen ASAP now that the Republicans have won definitively in the Senate. I think Andrew will be confirmed pretty quickly, and that means that our new Solicitor General will take over pretty soon, and that's exciting. I think John Merrill, Secretary of State, no surprise there. Tom Parker as Chief Justice, there's not a surprise that he won. I thought maybe if there was a close race for the Republicans, that would be it, that Parker might struggle a little bit, but he won handily. I mean, Robert Vance tried to portray Tom Parker as Roy Moore, and really link Parker to Moore, which meant the election could have been closer. Vance actually ran against Moore for that spot not too long ago, so I think that race went down to I forget what the exact margins were, but they're more narrow margins than Parker's defeat over Vance this time.
Well, I was looking, and I'm holding.
That's interesting.
I'm holding that in front of me as far as Tom Parker and Bob Vance. Now, there was a time early in the election when everything was coming in that actually Vance got ahead of him. And
Vance spent a ton of money and raised a ton of money compared to Parker. I mean, he outspent and out-fundraised Parker by a lot. Vance had actually some endorsements from former Alabama Supreme Court justices, including some who were Republican, and Parker had actually an interesting split. You think trial lawyers typically back Democratic candidates, or at least that's how it was for a long time. But the trial lawyers backed Tom Parker, so you had some interesting splits going on. But none of that seemed to matter. Parker won, and won.
Well, Parker was 58 and Vance was 42. It was 58-42.
Yes, I think
that's how it
sounds
wound
right.
up.
I said 58, right? Parker had 58% to 42. Yeah, that's I think that's right. My friend Jay Mitchell will be joining the court too, the Alabama Supreme Court, and that's exciting. He's a great guy, and will do an excellent job. I think there was a time when he was wanting to run for Attorney General, and saw the lay in the land and realized he would be better suited to run for the Alabama Supreme Court, and I think that was a great calculation. It paid off. He's going to be a great justice. And State Auditor Jim Ziegler winning, that's not really a surprise. What am I missing? The amendments. The amendments, I think, were all yeses.
Every one of them.
So,
and by pretty big margins, too. You're looking at Amendment 1 was 72%. 2 was 59%. Yeah. So I was proud to see that. Yeah, absolutely. And then Amendment 2 was 59%, 3 was 60%, and then number 4 was 66%. So,
yeah, three.
yeah.
Three. That was the one about the University of Alabama Board of Trustees and
Right.
let him serve after 70 and setting the number. I mean, that one to me is just it didn't really affect me a whole lot. So I didn't really.
I was
care
wondering
how
why that was
turned
even
out.
on there, actually. I mean, what was the deal? Why did we even have it on there?
I forget. There was a reason. I just can't recall what it was, but there was a pretty good reason. I mean, I think allowing to serve after 70 is perfectly reasonable. I mean, 70 is not very old.
That's the new 50 now, isn't it?
These days, I mean, I know people that are in their mid 80s that are just sharp as a tack. I know, like for example, John Denson over at Opelika is a brilliant man, and there's no reason why he couldn't serve as a judge still. But we cap our judgeships at 72. But yeah, John Denson could easily be a judge. There's no reason why he shouldn't still be one.
I have an aunt who is 97 years old, Aunt Elizabeth Burgess, and I'll tell you what, her mind is sharper than mine. I mean, she's all in it.
I mean, you think about there's the risk of having a Ruth Bader Ginsburg hanging around.
Yeah, not that one, but
I don't think it's hard because it's a case by case basis. Some people stay with it, and some people don't, and it's hard to legislate the right figure, the right number for the entire state. That's just a hard thing to do. But I think it's perfectly fair to allow the trustees of University of Alabama or Auburn University, for that matter, to serve after 70.
yeah. Well, what do you think the future of Alabama is? I mean, we can see pretty much Republican from what happened last night. I believe every Republican won, didn't they? Were there any?
Yeah, well,
Democrats?
I think what happened is that I think a lot of people just got in there and voted straight ticket. Just clicked or just filled out the box that was vote Republican only, and then they flipped the ballot and voted on their amendments, and that was it. They were in and out. I think a lot of people did that.
Well, do you think it was a let's not let anything like Doug Jones happen again? Do you think that could be part of it?
No, I mean, I think the Doug Jones situation was so unique in light of, the fact that it was a special election, and so it's the only election in the country going on of that magnitude, and so you had all the national media coming down on it. Roy Moore is a unique candidate already, and then when you bring in all the sexual assault allegations and things against him, it was just such a strange situation that you can't extrapolate from it any sort of generalizations about the state of Alabama politics. Now, what I do think is who's going to run against Jones. I mean, that's going to be really a big thing to watch. Is it going to be Steve Marshall, our Attorney General? Is it going to be Mo Brooks? Is it going to be Adderhall? Is it going to be Del Marsh? Is it going to be Bradley Byrne? Is it going to be Mike Rogers? I mean, there are all kinds of people that are out there who might run. Gary Palmer. I mean, who knows?
How about you? How about you, Alan?
No, I don't think so. I don't think.
I think you could.
A household name, but I'll have fun watching that.
I think you could.
Out.
Well, let me ask you a question about Roy Moore. And
yes.
Okay, if that election happened after Kavanaugh, do you think Moore would have had a better success?
Well, that's an interesting question. The short answer is I don't know. Part of me wants to say yes, but part of me also wants to say that had the Roy Moore thing not happened, Kavanaugh might not have gotten off as easily.
I
And I
agree.
say that because a lot of these allegations, if not all the allegations, except for maybe one, is still being investigated against Roy Moore. But I think all of them were discredited and disproven after the election, and the media just didn't pay any attention to that. And I think Republicans did, however. And so when they saw these accusations against Kavanaugh, they thought, oh, they're trying to do
Again.
1.0 here, and we're not going to let it happen because we saw that those claims were discredited and invalidated, and we're not going to let that happen to Kavanaugh. The stakes are too high, and they played that right. It's turned out that now we've had multiple accusers retract their accusations against Kavanaugh since he was confirmed, and you've had a referral to criminal investigation with the FBI in light of some of the investigations against Kavanaugh. So the Senate investigation turned up no evidence whatsoever of any sexual Kavanaugh has been completely vindicated. And one thing that fascinates me is that after the election was over, the media went dead silent about Kavanaugh and the accusations against him, which to me shows that they were complicit in trying to influence that confirmation process. If they were really, truly concerned about the situation, if they really, truly believed that Kavanaugh were guilty of the things that he was,
they would have been relentless.
they would have been on it every single day. We would still be seeing it every single day. But they knew that these things had substance to them. They were going to fight it and make it as big of a story as they could, but once the confirmation happened, they went dead silent because they really didn't care. A, they didn't care, or B, they knew them to be false. So I think the Kavanaugh hearings are Exhibit A for how corrupt and dishonest and misleading our media has become. I mean, people talk about fake news.
Watch it, not all media. Watch it.
Yeah, with the exception of you.
There you go.
And others like you. There you go. But I mean, that is disgraceful. I mean, that is a stain on our country's history, and it will not be looked on favorably. I mean, for that much of a circus to arise out of something that had no evidence, literally no evidence whatsoever for it, and to make that big of a deal, and for things to be to go that far and almost derail the Kavanaugh nomination based on no evidence, shows how absurd our politics are getting. I mean, that's crazy stuff.
You know, there was a potential for a blue wave, I think, had this not happened. I think there could have possibly been a blue wave. I think they really messed up.
I think you're right. I think it backfired on Democrats. I think it put a big wall in front of that blue wave.
So let me ask you a question. So what should happen to these women, okay, who absolutely had no evidence whatsoever? What would happen in the real world if you worked for a company and you did this? I mean, what should happen to them?
Well, I mean, there's always defamation lawsuits and those kinds of things. They can take place. And, I know Senator Grassley, who chaired the Senate Judiciary Committee, he revealed fraud to the FBI and is referring a case to prosecution against that Monroe Layton figure who filed an anonymous report, and she turned out to be not only just lying and making it up, but she's also a big activist, a big left-wing activist. And so, she could find herself in front of FBI DOJ investigation. That's a big deal. Of course, that also goes to the Swetnick, the Julie Swetnick person, and the Avenatti, the attorney that's trying to just representing Stormy Daniels and trying to become famous and being anti-Trump. They might find themselves in front of criminal investigations, subject to criminal investigations. So that kind of stuff can happen. I mean, people need to know that. That kind of stuff is really serious, and also it is a slap in the face to the true victims out there of sexual assault. I mean, all the
That's
women
what I'm
out
upset
there
about.
who truly have been victims of sexual assault and have suffered that type of hardship and that type of trauma, to have their experience cheapened by a bunch of people trying to score political points is one of the lowest things I have ever heard of. I mean, that's shocking.
Yeah, and those folks are the ones who tout that, anti-bully and all this kind of stuff, and they're the biggest bullies of all.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's despicable. That's unacceptable, and that kind of stuff has to be eliminated from our political scene. And one danger that exists now is that you may have some people who run for office who really are of bad character and have committed bad acts and things like that, and now no one's going to believe the accusers because everyone's going to say, "Oh, it's probably just
another
thing, and there's one more thing where these people lied, so we're not going to believe." And somebody who really is a bad person may get elected to office because of all these false accusations. It's the old cry wolf. There's a reason why we tell the story about crying wolf. Right? Every child knows it, but you know, it's such a classic tale because of what it means. You know, you cry wolf enough time and people don't believe you, and then bad things happen. Then a real wolf comes along and eats you up.
I also think you reap what you sow. So if you dish it out there,
That's
it's
true.
going to come back at you. Big
That is
time.
absolutely right. Well, and that is another surprising thing though about the midterm elections is that you would think if the Democrats were this party that was so you know, pro women, that they wouldn't have these guys that are kind of Me Too people that were elected. I mean, there are 4 Democrats that are alleged having committed sexual misconduct against them. I think what is it, Keith Ellison and Bobby Scott, Bob Menendez, they've all been charged with sexual misconduct allegations. So if the Democrats really were the party of, you know, Me Too and all this, they're the only ones that elected candidates who.
I know. You got Bill Clinton.
Those things.
You got Bill Clinton, and then I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The Kennedys, you know, Teddy. I mean, for goodness sakes, he gets drunk and he goes back home and sleeps.
Pre-Me Too era. This is right in the heart of the Me Too era. They got 4 guys up there elected who are accused of doing pretty awful things. So, you know, I don't know how you square that with all the discussion of the Democrats are the party of women and all that. I mean, that's just ignoring all the Republican women who were elected. There were several Republican women that were elected this time around.
Well, I'm going to tell you a TV show I would love to see taken off the air, and I used to love it in the 1970s when it was funny. That's Saturday Night Live. That is the dumbest show ever. You heard what happened this weekend. This weekend, there was a guy on the. I haven't watched it in years, but I just heard it. Even on CNN, they were laughing about it. And this guy was talking about one of our military. I mean,
yeah, one of our veteran representatives with the eye patch and all that. Yeah, that was pretty disgraceful too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't like that at all. So I mean, you know, take it off the air. Do people even watch that anymore?
I don't know. I certainly don't. So I'm sure somebody does, or else it wouldn't be on the air. But you know, I mean, every now and then, I think when Trump was first elected, I watched some of those where they were kind of mocking Sean Spicer and all that. They mocked Jeff Sessions, and I watched like the YouTube clips from those, but I've never actually watched it on air. I mean, I haven't watched it on air since, it's probably been 20 years.
Yeah, me too. I liked it back in the 70s, though. It was kind of funny. They would make fun of everybody in politics.
Yeah,
Democrats and
opportunity offenders, right? Yeah.
You remember that? You remember the time? Let's see. Chevy Chase would make fun of Ford, you know, for falling down all the time,
yeah.
And those were funny. I mean, that way, at that time, everybody laughed at their own self. And it wasn't this, you know, put your feelings on your shoulders kind of thing. You know, Jimmy Carter, the time he had hemorrhoids, and they had Lillian packed a bunch of preparation H for him. He was going to Camp David and stuff like that. That was funny, but back then we laughed at our own selves. And so now, what's happened to our sense of humor?
Well, I think there's a lot to that. Now that you mention it, I think people are not able to joke about themselves a lot. I know this is going to be probably a rude example, but Jonah Goldberg at National Review was speaking at a Philadelphia Society meeting I was at recently, and somebody was saying, well, you should tell a joke about him when you get up on the stage, and one of his friends who knew him well said, well, no, don't do that. He really doesn't take jokes very well. You know, he's not good at it. We need to all lighten up. It's fun to make fun of yourself. You know, we're not all. I don't know why we have to all pretend to be flawless, or if we just have the egos where we can't just make fun of ourselves anymore. I mean, that's just a fun part of being alive, is being able to joke and laugh at things, you know, that you mess up on or that you don't do particularly well. That's just fun.
It's life. It's called living a life.
Yeah, that's right. It's called being a normal person.
There you go. Alan, we're going to have to call it, go into a break. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's always a delight to talk with you, but let's get together on a particular time that you can come to the show regularly, okay?
That would be fun. That sounds good, Donna.
Okay, let's do that. You have a good one, okay?
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. That was Alan Mendenhall. Always great to talk politics with him. We'll be